it's Angie from Sunny Side Up Living Blog, and today I'm sharing my recipe for Panko Crusted Salmon cakes. Let's get cracking! Alright guys, just a couple notes on this particular recipe before we get started. The first one is that for this particular recipe, I'm going to use canned salmon. I've seen a couple other people who've made salmon patties before and they've used cooked flaked salmon, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to use the canned salmon because this is just the way that I know how to make this recipe. And one more thing about this salmon is with canned salmon, you will occasionally come into contact with bones and maybe even a little bit of skin. And it sounds disgusting, but it just kind of comes with the territory with canned salmon. So we'll just make sure that we pick those out. You don't really necessarily want those in your salmon patties. I remember growing up, my mom's always had a couple in there, and it was no big deal to us as kids, but as an adult, I probably wouldn't really like that. Panko is an optional thing. I really like using panko. I like the crispy texture it gives the recipe. However, if you prefer to use something like cornmeal instead, you could definitely do that, or even just regular breadcrumbs. And then the third thing, and the final thing, is that I am going to be making this recipe using my air fryer. However, if you don't have an air fryer, you can bake these in the oven. You could actually pan fry them, but I prefer to keep the recipe a little bit healthier, so I'm using just a tiny brushing of olive oil on the top, and we're gonna air fry these. If you'd prefer to try baking instead of an air fryer, or if you don't have an air fryer, I will include the baking directions in the notes on my blog and then also in the YouTube description. All right, without any further ado, let's get going on this recipe. Visit sunnysideuplivingblog.com to find this complete recipe as well as conventional baking instructions. To make these salmon cakes, start by draining the canned wild pink salmon and placing it in a large bowl. With a fork, mash the salmon evenly. You can pick out the skin or mix it in. Now it's mashed enough that you can pick out the salmon bones. They're really tiny and round. They look like this, and once you find one, you'll find 20 more. If you don't find them all though, don't stress about it. They're soft and easy to digest. Put a half cup of panko or breadcrumbs on a plate and set it aside. Now we're ready to add the seasonings. We'll start by adding a half cup of flour, a half cup of finely diced onion, a quarter cup of finely diced green pepper, 1 large egg, 1 teaspoon of seasoned salt, a half teaspoon of Worcester sauce, a quarter teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and a few grinds of fresh pepper. With your fork, mix all of the ingredients together thoroughly. Your salmon cake mixture will look like this. Using a half cup size measuring cup, scoop up the salmon mixture and form flat cakes with your hands, flattening the mixture down and then dredging it in the panko. Place these on your air fryer sheets or baking sheets for a standard oven, repeating this process until all of the cakes are made. Brush some olive oil on the top of each salmon cake. Set your air fryer for 390 degrees and the time for 8 minutes. Then flip and bake for another 4 minutes. Your salmon cakes will be crispy and ready to enjoy. That's it for today. For more simple, delicious recipes like this one, hit subscribe.